Disaster response officials report more casualties because of Agaton as rescuers retrieve more bodies from landslides in Baybay City, Leyte. As Election Day nears, a group shifts support from one presidential candidate to another, and a regional party endorses a survey frontrunner. And we've gotten a lot of action on the court today, with supporters of the UAAP men's basketball getting a bit political. Two cyclones hovered over Philippine waters on a week when a number of Filipinos are traveling in and out of the country. Tropical Depression Agaton and Typhoon Malakas. While Malakas entered the country this morning and exited this afternoon, we're seeing how devastating Agaton has been in parts of the Visayas and Mindanao. The death toll from Agaton has climbed to 20, but National Disaster Response officials say these are still for validation. 6 people were injured and 1 is missing. But in Baybay City, Leyte alone, Mayor Carl Cari has confirmed 30 people have died after landslides hit 10 villages. Search and rescue efforts are underway for at least 150 people reportedly missing. Over 100 others were injured.
Yung tatawagin ko nila, yung nautusan ko sila.
It's uncertain how many people, if not bodies, are still buried in the ground.
The city government says rescue and retrieval operations will continue for several days and can be suspended if it rains again. Now, aside from Barangay Banga, there are still other barangays where there are reported landslides, such as in Barangay Makinhas, which is more or less 30 minutes away from here. We will try to reach the area as soon as we can. There are still roads that are not passable to all types of vehicles because of landslides. Now, we're also showing you pictures of the extent of damage due to the landslides, including aerial shots of one side of the mountain that sheared off. Residents are still trying to salvage what they can, maybe even find more survivors in all these debris. And the city government is also appealing for more help. They're asking for hygiene kits, clothes, blankets, food packs, and drinking water for evacuees. Back to you, Pia.
Rex Remito there reporting from Baybay City in Leyte. Well, in Cebu province, police say one person was killed in a landslide in San Francisco town in Camotes Islands yesterday. They say the 52-year-old man was quarrying limestone when heavy rains triggered a landslide. He was pulled from the rubble, rushed to the hospital, but was declared dead on arrival. In Capiz, a family from Dumarao town has been rescued after hours of being trapped in their flooded home. In a Facebook post, Diosena May Dayan earlier appealed for help as they have a baby and 3 senior citizens in the family. One of the elderly is using an oxygen tank. Parts of the province are still flooded and local officials are appealing for help. The situation is not looking any better, especially for people in the Visayas and Mindanao. The Weather Bureau Pag-asa says eastern Samar, northern Samar, Biliran, Leyte, southern Leyte, Camotes Island, and Dinagat Islands remain under signal number 1. Tropical depression Agaton is seen to downgrade in the next 24 hours, but it will continue to bring moderate to heavy with at times intense rains in these areas. While Bashang or Malakas, the second storm to enter the country this year, has intensified into a typhoon, but it has exited the country just hours after entering the monitoring area this morning. Our long lines are people rushing to take the earliest trips to spend the Holy Week in the provinces. Lois Calderon brings us to one of the busiest terminals in Cubao, Quezon City, where bus tickets are selling slower than usual.
Araneta Center has its mall called Gateway for a good reason. This used to be crowded with people moving in and out via bus terminals here that you see, especially during this time of the year. But that was before the pandemic struck. What used to be 8,000 passengers taking the bus daily during Holy Week, foot traffic shrank to just about a quarter, 2,000 per day. That's the peak expected tomorrow or on Good Friday. Today, buses are half filled. Just about 30 passengers in a bus that can take 66 at full capacity. No long lines. We spoke with the Araneta City property manager and the dispatcher.
With the situation right now, we don't expect so much. So roughly around 2,000 passengers for those dates of this Holy Week. Some of the terminals along EDSA are also operating. So there are routes the same as what we have here. So parang nahati rin ano. And of course the majority are in PITX.
Sa ngayon po ang pila namin medyo matagal-tagal kasi matumal pa yung pasahero eh.
This terminal hosts short trips only to Calamba and Batangas in the south and to Araya at San Fernando, Dau in Pampanga and Tarlac in the north. Buses flying long haul have moved to the integrated bus terminals like the PITX and in Santa Rosa, Laguna. Pia, back to you.
Lois, with fewer passengers, how many round trips do we expect and until what time can people take the buses?
The terminal manager estimates about 80 buses per day pick up passengers here, but bus operators say they'll be lucky to even make a round trip per day, while their permits actually allow them to go back and forth as much as 8 times. That's not the case anymore given the lack of passengers. The earliest bus leaves at 8 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning, and the last trip goes at 10 p.m. All the others make the last stop as early as 7 p.m. Still, this terminal is useful for those needing bus transfers from north to south or vice versa. Let's listen in.
Galing po kaming Batangas, pauwi na ng Pampanga. Pauwi na uli kami, medyo mabilis naman yung biyahe.
Hindi naman po ganun kahirap. Nandyan lang naman po yung mga nagbibigay ng ticket. Madali lang naman po.
Passengers say bus fares have increased, but bus operators say they haven't. What's clear is that it's not business as usual in this bus terminal, and bus operators may need to recharge their post-pandemic exit strategy. Back to you.
Senior correspondent Lois Calderon there reporting live from the Araneta Center in Cubao. Now, a different scenario awaits travelers at the country's largest gateway, with authorities expecting more people to fly home for the long weekend. Let's check the situation at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Pasay City with our correspondent, Paige Javier. Paige?
Pia, the Holy Week travel rush seems to be dwindling down 2 days before the long break. Earlier, we saw long lines in and outside NAIA Terminal 3. But this afternoon, just before this report, the lines have seemed to dissipated. Apart from packing your luggage, you should also pack some patience, as there will be long waiting time during check-in. Some travelers we spoke to said that they arrived several hours before their scheduled flights.
Kasi akala namin traffic kasi, Tuesday maraming lumalabas.
The Manila International Airport Authority earlier said it is ready for the influx of passengers with tight security and assistance desks. MIAA recorded its peak on Saturday, over 31,000 domestic departures. These numbers are close to pre-pandemic levels and significantly higher than last year when we had tighter restrictions. On Holy Monday, there were less than 30,000 domestic departures and over 9,000 international ones. Airport authorities expect less passengers to arrive tomorrow based on their experience during pre-pandemic times. Pia.
Aside from the long lines, did the passengers encounter other problems?
Well, Pia, authorities have yet to report any problems apart from the canceled flights. This morning, trips from Manila bound to Caticlan, Bacolod, Masbate were canceled due to the bad weather in those destinations. Passengers are reminded to check with their airlines for any announcements, such as flight cancellations, before heading to the airport. Meanwhile, the travelers we spoke to mostly complained about the long lines. Some say these are unavoidable, while others say they have learned to arrive earlier here to avoid delays. Pia.
Paige Javier there reporting from the NAIA in Pasay City. Well, whether you're doing Visita Iglesia, joining a procession, or traveling, officials remind you to be extra careful because of COVID-19 this Holy Week. The Health Department cautions against a potential spike in cases because of Semana Santa, Ramadan, and election activities. The public should also watch out for common rainy day illnesses like dengue. An outbreak was declared in Zamboanga City on Friday, where over 1,000 cases were reported. 13 children have died from the mosquito-borne disease.
Marami po dun sa mga nagkasakit ng dengue would be less than 18 years old. Hindi naman po lahat ng areas na to ay nagkaroon ng pagtaas ng pagkakamatay because of dengue. Meron lang ho tayong na-monitor na ang pinakamataas, pinakamadami, reported were from Zamboanga City, Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu Province, and Iloilo Province.
The DOH also monitoring the rising number of cases of dengue in Cagayan Valley, Western Visayas, and the Davao region. Well, straight ahead on Newsnight, groups still drawing political battle lines 27 days before the Filipino votes. Volunteers go for Leni Robredo over Isko Moreno, while the top party in Cebu goes for Bongbong Marcos. And CNN Philippines exclusive, the future of Philippine-China relations after the Duterte administration, straight from the Chinese ambassador himself, Wang Xilian. Stay tuned.
Akala ko conquering the universe was the ultimate, but there's more. Dahil tinawag ko ako ng Panginoon for a major purpose. To guide the youth, help communities, and to bring others closer.
Welcome back. More shifts in alliances with just 27 days to go before the Filipino votes. This time, it is a faction of a volunteer group for Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, which is now backing Vice President Leni Robredo. Paolo Barcelon and Anjo Alimario both join us live to tell us more about this. We begin with Paolo. Paolo, one faction of Ikaw Muna Pilipinas now for Robredo, while the other is sticking with Moreno. What happened?
Well, Pia, the answers to those questions depend on both groups, but they are making it clear that their political battle lines have been drawn. The former convener of Ikaw Muna Pilipinas, former MMDA Chairman Tim Orbos, as well as the former Secretary General of IM Pilipinas, Elmer Argaño, have switched their support from Moreno to the candidacy of Vice President Leni Robredo. Their group explains they do not want survey frontrunner Bongbong Marcos to win and that Moreno still has a, quote, bright political future, unquote, even if he gives way for Robredo's candidacy.
We now direct our call, however, for unity directed towards the supporters and volunteers of these candidates. Manalo na po tayo kung hindi ho para sa kanila, sa ating mga kandidato, para po sa atin, para po sa bansa.
However, the rest of IM Pilipinas is disputing this shift in support. The IM Pilipinas group led by Secretary General Philip Picho says they will stick it out with Moreno until the very end. Political officers and volunteers showed up earlier this afternoon saying not all of IM Pilipinas made the switch to Robredo.
We are intact, and originally and until today, 98 to 99% of our members are staying with Yorme Isko Moreno. Ngayon, ginamit nila yung IM. I'm just requesting them, please refrain from doing that kasi you're trying to connote na akala mo yung IM Pilipinas parang lumilipat as a whole.
Now, IM Pilipinas, Pia, was the organization that called for Moreno's candidacy. They claim to have at least 200,000 members and organized on-ground efforts for Moreno's campaign. As for Mayor Isko, who held a motorcade in Muntinlupa City and San Pedro Laguna earlier today, he respects the decision of the group led by Orbos.
Maraming salamat sa kanila. I wish them all the best. And this separates the men from the boys. I hope the other group will trust them.
Pia, the camp of VP Robredo welcomed this with open arms. In a statement, the spokesperson of the Vice President, Attorney Barry Gutierrez, thanked Orbos' group, saying coming together in shared colors or shared hope, regardless of colors, is what will bring victory for the Filipino people. Pia.
Paolo Barcelon, they're reporting. Let's go now to our senior correspondent, Anjo Alimario, who is with the Robredo campaign. Anjo, Paolo did give a little bit of a clue as to how the VP herself or her campaign thinks about all the supporters of Moreno switching to her. But give us more details.
Well, it's a crucial development that supporters of other presidential candidates are shifting alliances to her. Mrs. Robredo says anything that will boost her numbers is always welcome, and she hopes to meet them in person to personally thank them. Now, early in the day, Robredo visited La Union, a known stronghold of her closest rival, Bongbong Marcos. A pink crowd of 5,000 to 6,000 supporters proved that the so-called Solid North is a myth. In 2016, Robredo lost big in the province with only 19,000 votes against Marcos's 340,000. But she points out, despite her defeat here, she made sure to help the province in times of disasters and even at the height of the pandemic. And if given the opportunity to serve as president, Robredo assures the public that she will be a president for all colors. This afternoon, Robredo brings her campaign to Catanduanes, where she won by over 60,000 votes against Marcos 6 years ago. Now, on Wednesday, she will be barnstorming in Masbate, which she carried in 2016. But the governor is backing Marcos, who is claiming that 17 of 21 mayors there are for the son of the late dictator. Pia.
Anjo, yesterday a malicious video targeting Robredo's eldest daughter, Aika, circulated online. The VP spokesperson said they're considering legal action against those responsible. How is the Robredo family taking this?
Well, the Robredo family refuses to be affected by this issue. Robredo says she's no longer surprised with this move by her opponent, who has a penchant for spreading disinformation about her since 2016. This will only reflect the kind of leadership that her rival will have if elected, full of lies and dirt. And asked if she believes Marcos is behind the black propaganda.
Ang nakikita naman natin yung mga nakapaligid sa kanya, eto din yung mga ginagamit yung mga influencers. Hanggang ngayon, hindi ako hinintuan over the last 6 years. Pero kung meron man lesson na nakuha ko from that, wala talagang kapalit ang paggawa ng kabutihan, walang kapalit yung katotohanan.
Yesterday, Pia, Bishop Soc Villegas in a Twitter post expressed support for Aika and asked her not to be disturbed by these lies and to stay focused on doing what is good. Back to you.
Yeah, Paolo Barcelon, back to you. The One Cebu, led by the governor of Cebu, Gwen Garcia, formally endorsing Marcos BBM today. But the governor's brother, Deputy Speaker and Congressman Pablo John Garcia, who's running for election, not on board with that. What's going on and why this split in the Garcia family?
Well, Pia, it's because Deputy Speaker PJ Garcia said he is committed to campaigning for Mayor Isko Moreno. In fact, earlier today, Congressman Garcia stepped down as Secretary General of One Cebu, but he said he will continue supporting the local party's bets in the province. Now, Cebu is an important campaign stop for the Moreno campaign team. They've made 6 visits to Cebu province since Moreno filed his certificate of candidacy, and there was even an instance, Pia, that we in the campaign reporters thought that Governor Garcia will endorse Moreno because he was toured in the provincial capital. They even did the sign that is similar to God First, and it's also the sign that's used by One Cebu. But all along, and it's been revealed today that One Cebu will endorse the candidacy of Marcos, but the Deputy Speaker Garcia said he'll stick it out with Moreno until the end. Back to you, Pia.
Thank you to the both of you, Paolo Barcelon and Anjo Alimario, for those updates. So, will we see more alliances shifting ahead of the elections? Join me in Politics as usual at 8 this evening as we make sense of these latest developments. Catch Robredo's running mate Kiko Pangilinan on the show as well. Well, Senator Manny Pacquiao expects to win over Moreno's base after the Manila mayor lost the support of an IM Pilipinas faction to Robredo. Pacquiao claims some of Moreno's supporters will back him instead of the vice president because of his rags to riches story.
Hindi naman siguro lahat papunta doon kay Lene. Baka sa akin pupunta yon. Sa atin din naman siguro dahil si Isko may background din ng galing sa mahirap. Ang mga mahihirap na tao, sulit yan. Sulit na nakasuporta kay Manny Pacquiao dahil wala po silang inasahan. Alam nila yung puso ni Manny Pacquiao na doon ako nanggaling. Doon ako sa buhay na walang-wala.
The latest pulsation survey shows Robredo has 24% support in Class D and 22% in Class E, while Moreno has 8% in both groups. Pacquiao scored 5% for Class D and 13% for Class E. Well, as the Philippines prepares to elect a new president, China says it hopes to maintain close ties with Manila under the next administration. Tristan Nadal spoke with Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian about this in this exclusive report.
Shaping the course of Philippine-China relations beyond the present administration. This was one of the highlights of the recent telesummit between President Rodrigo Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping. In an exclusive interview with CNN Philippines, Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian said the timing of the meeting was just right.
They have talked about the potential area of cooperation in the future, and President Xi Jinping has emphasized that China maintains the stability and continuity of China's policy towards the Philippines.
From the Build, Build, Build program to the country's pandemic response, China vows to fulfill its commitment to the Philippines in the years to come.
So we have implemented altogether 16 projects so far, and there will be more than 1 dozen to come. PPEs, test kits, and vaccines, whatever we can do, we have to try our best to help. So I think that's kind of cooperation in fighting the pandemic has become another milestone in our bilateral relations.
But on the other hand, you have the South China Sea dispute. So how could the Filipino public better understand the situation in South China Sea?
It is normal to have differences among neighbors. Do not allow the differences to affect or even hijack our bilateral relations.
But as the fate of the Philippine-China relations hangs in the balance ahead of the May 2022 elections, the Chinese ambassador can only hope that the next leader will keep the momentum going.
We also hope that no matter who will be elected as the leader of this country, that kind of policy, friendly policy of cooperation will be continued by the next administration. We are willing to work with, that's the next administration.
Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Coming up, the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay turns pink as UAAP fans switch their trademark colors for one presidential candidate. And the best performing schools in this year's bar exam. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines. Welcome back. The list is out. 8,241 out of 11,402 examinees passed the recent bar exams. This was the first to be held digitally because of the pandemic. Ateneo had the highest passing rate among schools with over 100 bar takers at 99.6%. And UP had the largest number of excellent takers, with 4 scoring higher than 90%. The exam coverage was reduced amid the pandemic and Typhoon Odette's onslaught last December. Politics mixing into sports in the second round of UAAP men's basketball. Some attendees of today's UP versus NU game at the Mall of Asia Arena spotted wearing pink to support presidential candidate Leni Robredo. As for the results, the Fighting Maroons made their 7th straight win, beating the Bulldogs 84-76. Ateneo and LaSalle fans are following suit, also in pink. Yesterday, the school's presidents called on Ateneans and LaSallians for Leni to wear the Presidential Bets campaign color at the 7 p.m. game. The UST also encouraged supporters to make the shift from yellow to pink in UAAP Round 2 matches. The university called this a symbol of their quest for an honest government. Earlier, UST succeeded in breaking its losing streak with a win against UE 72-61. We dig deeper into how politics is entering the hard court with sports writer Naveen Ganglani. Catch our discussion on politics as usual tonight at 8. And that is it for now. Join me again on Politics as usual from 8 to 9 p.m., 1 full hour. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Senator, thanks for staying. Are you there? Okay, I don't think we have Senator Marcos on air. While we try to get him, I still wanted to actually interview the senator on various issues. We left it at what he called, what he would be is a unifying president, talking really about the COVID-19 response of government, sabi nga niya, unifying, synchronizing all sectors. And this begins with the vaccination of the public, which really is all about herd immunity. So I am wondering if we still have the senator. We're waiting for that. So we had an interview with Senator Marcos earlier from 9 to 9:30 on television. Now we are live on Facebook. So a lot of questions really, what are his plans? Wala pang Vice President, si Senator Bongbong Marcos. At sinasabi nga niya, everything is evolving. It is still volatile for him right now. And as he mentioned a while ago, he was as surprised as political observers were, because the plan initially was really to get President Rodrigo Duterte as his vice presidential running mate. Let's remember, former Senator Bongbong Marcos filed his certificate of candidacy yesterday. And dun niya po inamin, he said to one of the reporters, I will be candid with you, the plan was really to get President Duterte as his vice presidential candidate. Is the senator back? Okay, andyan na po si Senator Bongbong Marcos. Senator, as I mentioned a while ago, thanks for staying. You're live, sir. Okay, hintayin pa rin natin. I think the senator is still logging in. Okay, so while our team is still talking to former Senator Bongbong Marcos, ang sabi din niya po, they're open to any possibility right now to field a vice presidential candidate. All right, he's back on air. Senator, we are live on Facebook. We just have about 5 to 10 minutes, and I thank you for staying, sir.
Sure.
Okay, Senator, so yung sinasabi niyo pong unifying leadership, let's be siguro very candid about this also. I understand what you're saying. Definitely, COVID will still be with us. Sabi nga ng gobyerno, 1 to 2 more years. But when you said unifying president, a lot of people speculated on the other meaning of that. Meaning, how will you unify the country in terms of, you know, a pro-Marcos, an anti-Marcos, a pro-Duterte, an anti-Duterte? Is that top of mind for you also to be able to unify? No. Okay.
No. To be able to unify is certainly the most critical thing that we have to achieve. What is not top of mind is the political color of the person that the person or the group that we are dealing with. And I really believe that if you present the people, no matter what their political color might be, if you present a good plan and you present the capability, you have the capability to make the bureaucracy work for you, to do the things that need to be done, by including the coordination with the private sector, including the coordination with individuals, with local governments, etc. If you present a plan for them to all follow, that it can be seen to be effective, then that will be the unifying factor. It is not I'm not talking about unifying political segments. I'm unifying the people, unifying our organs of government, unifying all the different sectors of our society and of our economy to work together. Right now, as I said, there are the different elements are working at cross purposes. Minsan, one side, basically, the private sector is complaining about government is complaining about the private sector, etc. Now, if we could bring that all together, we would certainly, I think, do a better job of managing the COVID, especially with the new Delta variant, with the acquisition of many more vaccines and the big and a big rollout of vaccination to all the different areas. That is what I mean when I say unify. It is not a political unificationism. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to unify our efforts against COVID. The goal here is to unify our efforts to reignite and revitalize the economy. That's what I meant by unifying.
All right, you made that very clear, Senator. And on the same topic, because you're looking into COVID still present next year, if you win, ano hong plano nyo? I just want to go specifics already because we only have 5 minutes left. What is your plan for the medical frontliners? You obviously know, certainly know what's been happening. Humihingi sila ng break. Maalis po yung ating mga medical frontliners. How do you plan to fix that?
Well, the first, when you look at the COVID situation everywhere in the world, it really boils down to vaccines. That's the most critical, fundamental part. That the acquisition, the whatever arrangements that we can make G2G, private, basta makapagpasok tayo ng vaccine. And then the next part is, as you mentioned, we have to take care of our frontliners. And when nagbago ng definition ng frontliner, dati sinasabi natin yung frontliner, yung mga nasa ospital, yung mga nurse, yung mga medtech, yung mga basta nagtatrabaho sa ospital, mga doktor, even the people who clean, etc. Now the frontliners are changing because nagbubukas na tayo ng ekonomiya. Number one, for example, I would say that now we should define teachers, especially those who are in the pilot program for face-to-face, that they should be considered frontliners and they should be prioritized for the vaccine. That's the same for our health workers. But our health workers, it's become a critical situation because the DOH says the shortfall in nurses here in the Philippines, especially in the pandemic, is 100,000 nurses. The Private Hospitals Association said 40% of their nurses have left nursing because they can no longer support their families by nursing. And that puts us in a very, very critical position, especially now that the Delta variant is shooting up. This is an example of us working at cross purposes. Ang kailangan natin ang ating serbisyo ng ating mga nurse, pero hindi natin sila nabibigyan ng yung sapat na benepisyo, yung mga benepisyo na ipinangako sa batas. So that's immediately a perfect example of what I say working at cross purposes. It doesn't achieve the stated goal and just causes this kind of problem where nurses are leaving. We lack 100,000 nurses, yet we continue to export nurses. So, again, working at cross purposes. So these are the things that I am trying to make sense of. And we have to bring together to unify, by unifying our efforts so that we can open the economy, get back to work, and some kind of normalcy in our lives again.
I'm going to really call this fast talk because it needs to be fast. So what is your plan doon po? Sabihin na, just particularly sa mga nurses, how do you prevent them from leaving the country? Have you thought about that? Is there a plan for them that you already have in mind?
Well, the thing is, let's start with the SRA, the specialist allowance or the hazard pay of the nurses. That make sure that they get all of that. Then and again, if we beyond that, even the vaccinations, we still prioritize them when we have booster, when it's time for shots. Unahin natin sila. So it's just a question of prioritizing, valuing their and recognizing the work that they do, and supporting them in that regard, because we think of them as nurses, we think of them as doctors, we think of them as technicians, but they are also the breadwinners of their family. And we cannot expect them to come to work and still be worried because they cannot feed their own families. So that's the first step. You support economically, financially the frontliners so that they are there. They are working in the quarantine areas. They're working in the hospitals. Everything that we can do to support stay. It's a labor market that we are competing in. Of course, they go abroad because ang laki ng kinikita nila sa natanggap sila doon. Kailangan natin, but of course, a Filipino would rather work at home. So they will take a less pay, pero talagang sapat para doon sa kanilang pangangailangan. And they will stay at home and they will work here in the Philippines.
Senator, yes or no, if you can, please, will you pursue the drug war of President Rodrigo Duterte with the same vigor, the same aggressiveness?
Yes, but perhaps in a different way. We have seen that the drug war has been conducted purely on the enforcement side. I think that we should also focus on the prevention side, and educational process where we're teaching our young children that that doing drugs is bad, although the health implications, the implications to their lives, etc. So tapos yung pag-rehab, pagandahin naman natin ang mga rehab center natin, because there are many rehab centers, there's some rehab centers, but they're not really functioning properly with the most modern techniques. Kaya paglabas na rehabilitate, 6 na buwan, dire-diretso bibili ka agad ng drugs sa bago umuwi, bibili na agad ng drugs. So kailangan natin so I think my approach would be the enforcement we have seen can only take you so far, the enforcement side of the drug problem. You have to also look at the prevention side and the curing side.
Do you think there were human rights violations in the president's war on drugs?
Well, they're investigating it, and we will see what the results of that investigation are. It is especially in the beginning of his term. It was really an internecine war amongst the drug dealers, drug lords. But I think that has slowed down, and now we're actually dealing with the bigwigs, those who are really responsible for the supply of drugs being brought into the Philippines.
Senator, last question: will you allow ICC investigators to come into the country if you win as president?
Well, we are not signatory to the Rome agreements anymore. We withdrew. So yeah, they can come. They can be tourists and look at the Philippines. But I don't know. I don't know what they expect that the government will do beyond that. Because again, we don't recognize that investigation, and we have withdrawn as a signatory. So
that's right.
We will behave as a non-signatory. If they want to come to the country, we are welcome. Everybody is welcome to the Philippines, but as a visitor.
Yeah, but we did withdraw. However, this covers the years that we were still part of the Rome Statute, hindi ho ba? So that still covers it. There's already a ruling on that. So the question is, yung pong pag-examine nila, pag-investigate nila nung sinasabing crimes against humanity during those times, they may need to come here. The question is, will you allow them and open possibly the records that they may need if you become president?
That clearly is dependent on how they come. What do they come as? Are they coming to investigate all the policemen? They're going to make all of these allegations against people that we have no idea about, and then they want us to help them to bring accusations against our Filipino people, workers in government. Pambira naman siguro yun. I don't think that's right.
So
but once again, come to the Philippines. Everyone is welcome to come to the Philippines, but you will understand that we will have to examine very clearly what your intention is when you're coming here, and what the government's place is in those intentions that they have when they come to the Philippines.
Okay, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, sir, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, and take care of yourself.
Thank you again, Pinky. Ingat lang at maraming salamat din. Magandang umaga po.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.